Let's talk about suction. When you think Dyson, think manchestervacs.com.
Hello there, today we're going to talk about the V11. Are they any good? What goes wrong with them? Are they worth buying? Batteries, a couple of bits and bobs. So first things first, there's two types of V11. Well, actually there's four types of V11, and Dyson love to do this to confuse you. There's an SV14, there's an SV15, an SV17 and an SV28. Now the first one, the SV14, has a battery that screws in. The other three versions, the SV15, 17 and 28, has this clicking battery with a little red button that you can release the battery with. The batteries are not interchangeable. Now the machine on the whole, the criticisms that we hear about these, and actually I have one of these at home and it's a valid criticism, is that for a cordless machine they're a little bit on the heavy side. And by which I mean this is empty. This weighs 3 kilos exactly. And 3 kilos doesn't sound a lot, but when you think of something like a full-size Seabow is only about 8 kilos. And with something like this weighs more pro rata than that does. So by the time you put tools in, you hold it in the air. If you're fairly young and strong, it's fine. If you're knocking on a bit, you are going to struggle a little bit with that, and people do. And personally, even though I've got one of these, I had a V8 before it, and I find the V8 better for what most people tend to use a cordless machine for. And that is something else that we should talk about. Dyson tend to market these machines as a whole of house machine. And you know, you can replace your mains machine with it and it'll just do everything. And I tend to agree with that. I find that a little bit disingenuous. For me, the cordless machines are better as a secondary machine. So they're better really as a machine for the real stuff. If you've got deep pile carpets, for example, forget it. You won't be using this on it. They're better as a secondary machine. Have a good mains powered machine like a Seabow as your main machine, and then you can have one of these for just flitting around the kitchen floor, whizzing around before guests come, zapping moths, things like that, what people do with them. So, do they work well? Well, yeah, they do work well. That said, I would rather have a V8 personally, because I do find them a little bit cumbersome, and they also, a lot of people complain they're like a little bit heavy on the wrist because of the way that they're weighted. But yeah, they do work all right, and there's not a great lot goes wrong with them. So what does go wrong with them? I'll tell you actually what does go wrong with them. Obviously batteries fail on all cordless machines. The batteries are quite expensive. We have our own batteries of the clicking type. We don't yet have our own batteries of the screwing type. Beware cheap and nasty batteries on Amazon and eBay. They'll make lots of false claims, so many MAH, this and that and the other, and it's usually nonsense. It's just the cheapest stuff they can get from China. If you're going to buy a battery, buy a good battery from a good seller who knows what they're doing. Be prepared to pay a bit more, or consider buying genuine. Now the other thing that goes on these is the triggers. The red trigger tends to break inside and become ineffective. And as I said to you before, there are two versions of these with two different batteries. It's the one with the screw-on battery that the trigger tends to fail on. In fact, this is a customer's machine that we've put a trigger on today. The click-fit battery type tends to not fail the trigger. So that's something that Dyson improved along the way. Something Dyson didn't improve along the way. In here, when you open it, in there, and you can see it there, is a seal like a flange, and they tend to fail. I'll show you one because we sell them. Looks like this. They tend to fail. Of course, Dyson don't sell them on their own because Dyson like to sell you a full assembly for loads of money, but we sell them. That tends to be a weak point on them. The triggers on the early ones. And the only other difficulty that you're likely to encounter with one of these is the main bodies, which is where the motor is. The main body sometimes fails on them. They're quite expensive. We sell quite a few of them. And what tends to happen, there's 3 speeds on these, and you'll get difficulty on one speed. It'll be fluttering, it'll be pulsing, different to, not just like when it's blocked, because it'll be a fault in the board. If you suck water up one of these, they're dead. If you've had water up it, it's going to be dead. Some people take them apart and try and repair the circuit boards inside them. We tend not to, because it's often more trouble than it's worth. It's easier just to replace the whole body if that goes. And the only other thing that bugs me about this, when you start it, there's 3 speeds on it. When you start it, it starts at the middle speed. And if you want to put it on high speed, which I would tend to want to do, you've got to press it a few times to get it there. I'll show you that. I'm going to put a little bit of powder on the floor. We're going to try it and then we'll see. So like I said, I'm going to vacuum a bit of carpet powder up here now, because this is powder and this is carpet. I want it on full speed. Irritating with these, you've got to press them 2 or 3 times to get there, as you'll see. There it is. So yeah, performance is quite decent. Battery life is variable. Don't listen to the battery life that's quoted by Dyson on their website. They'll tell you it works for like 40 minutes or 50 minutes or whatever they say. It's complete fanciful. That's on low speed without the floor head running. If you've got the floor head going, you've got it on maximum, you're using it on carpet, I think more like 8-9 minutes at best. That's the only thing I find irritating really about that, is having to keep, every time I use it, I have to mess about pressing that button. Other than that, and other than a few of the weak points that I've talked about, they're actually a fairly decent machine, if a little bit on the heavy side. For my money, I'd buy a Dyson V8. You may have a completely different opinion, and you can tell me what you think in the comments down below. Thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe.